Hey everybody, welcome back to Carolina Living with Jimmy and Sarah. So I'm with Sarah Zdeb. She's the owner of JPAR Carolina Living Real Estate here in the Charlotte market and really across the Carolinas.
Yeah.
And I'm a realtor agent licensed in North and South Carolina with JPAR Carolina Living. So we're going to talk about a few things today. One of those topics that we were going to talk about is how the market is doing right now.
Yeah. Outside of that whole, interest rate flux, right? We were talking about some other topics that people really need to be paying attention to, right? I mean, we're seeing, the rents are constantly going up. That's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
We know that rents are continuing to go up. So, one of the things we have to be careful of is when people are trying to debate between buying a home right now and renting a home, that whole stability of your payment. Because remember, if you lock your rate in here and rates go up, great, you locked yourself in here. But they also have the ability, if the rates do drop, right, then they can refinance.
Right.
So they're still in that sweet spot.
For buying, you mean, versus
renting?
renting,
Buying versus renting, because now your rent's going up and up and up, and now you're not putting equity back into your home. You can't pull it out later. Can't refinance later. That's just money lost.
We always hear, somebody pointed it out yesterday. I came across on social media another agent that I know really well. They pointed out, they're like, you hear about date the rate, marry the house.
Yeah.
But one of the important things is I think is you need to make sure that even if you're dating the rate, you want to make sure that initial payment is something that you can afford.
That's right.
You don't want to walk into a situation where you can't afford the home or you're house poor.
Right.
And there's so many options out there right now where lenders have had to get a lot more creative in the past several months. One thing we see a lot is this 2-1 buy down.
Yep.
Where basically let's say you're approved with a 6% interest rate, which I think would be pretty good right now. I think we're at about 6.5%. But if you got a 6% interest rate, then your first year you'd be paying on a 4% interest rate, and the second year on a 5%.
Right.
And you have to get seller contributions to do that. But a lot of sellers are going along with that as well because they're able to keep the sales price, where they want it, and instead of making a big, huge drop in the sales price.
Right.
You still need to price it according to what the market supports. And if you have that opportunity to do that, that's.
Which so that brings up another really great point is talking about the seller side of things, right? Because we do see sellers offering more contributions now. They are offering more in closing costs or incentives, right? And a lot of it will come down to pricing properly from the beginning. Make sure your realtor knows, even within the city, different neighborhoods sell differently, whether it's the school district, the amenities, the walkability, right? Each neighborhood can sell differently, so you gotta have your expert realtor.
And even within a neighborhood, if you have different builders, different quality homes, different amenities within the home.
Yeah. So all of that, plays into a part of the seller as well. But one of the things that the sellers need to know is, for those who actually bought 2020 or prior, we know that there's a ton of them out there that still have 40+% equity.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the stats are just phenomenal to say all these people who still have equity for how much it actually went up for, 2020, 21, and 22, right? So we know that those early 2020s and prior have a ton of equity in their home. So being creative with those incentives and offering the 2-to-1 buy downs for those buyers, right, to make their house more appealing, they can actually still get a lot of money out of their sale and still get their home sold quickly to the right buyer, right? Now the buyers are getting the seller contributions, and it's like a win-win for everybody, right?
Exactly.
They're not having to throw away money on rent. So
yeah, we were talking earlier off camera about all these headlines that you're seeing, and if you just read the headlines on any subject, really, I mean, your head will spin. It'll freak you out. You'll think that the world's going to end. But one of the stories that you pointed out, there was a headline that said something like 60% of home buyers. It probably didn't say homeowners. It said probably 60% of home buyers are now underwater. But what they were actually referencing, if you read into it, was that, and I don't know if 60% was the number, but it was people who purchased their homes at the very peak of the market in 2022 and had probably only been in their homes for 6 months or less.
Right.
Well, of course, if you buy something at the very peak of the market, even if it kind of levels off or goes down just a little bit, then you might have less equity in your home.
Yeah.
You might be quote unquote underwater for a minute, but most people who are buying homes aren't buying them to stay in the house for 6 months and then turn around and sell. If you're in a home for less than 2 years, I've got a client right now who has been in his property for, he bought it in April of 2021. So we're actually going to have to time the sale of his house and wait until March so he can avoid paying capital gains taxes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, if somebody bought that house in 2022 and stays in for 2 years, they're going to have equity in that house.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and you've got, the new construction too, because we were talking about new construction and your theory on that. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, so when you buy a new construction home, it's like buying a brand new car versus a used car. And when you buy a brand new car, you drive it off the lot, the value of your car depreciates right away. So it's the same thing with new construction, especially if you're buying in a neighborhood where they're still building. You're not going to be able to sell it for the same price as that new construction. There's always that new construction premium.
Yeah.
And then you typically have to wait, I think, at least 2 years before you recoup that money in a normal market. The crazy market where we had 40% appreciation over the course of 2 years was a different story. I've got in my neighborhood, one of my clients that bought a new construction home about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, got it in the low threes, and now that same house is selling in the high threes to low fours.
Yeah.
So in 2 years she made $100,000 on her home. That's pretty good.
But that's exactly it. I mean, we just know that the ones that bought in the end of 2021 into 2022, in the very beginning, right before we saw that June-ish drop, right, they're going to struggle a little bit, But anybody prior to that, you should still be really good. I mean, that's just a 2-year example, and I mean that's almost 6 figures for her.
Yeah, and historically, the average in Charlotte is what you think, about 6 to 8% year over year that we've had for the past decade or so.
Yeah, it's been a good steady, slow increase year over year, except for the last 24 months have just been kind of a huge spike on us.
Well, when I first got into real estate here in the Carolinas, it was in 2013. And I remember working with homeowners on some listings that I had, and some houses were selling for less than what they might have purchased them for if they bought around 2008, 2009. And the neighborhoods that I worked in, I remember going back and looking at home sales prices, and the record sales price might have been like in 2007, 2008.
Yep.
And it took until 2016 until we were able to eclipse that.
Yeah.
And now we've blown those prices completely out of the water. But we're not expecting to see anything like that again, where it takes several years to get back to where we just were.
No, well, you have to remember too, we really didn't, for the first few years in that recession, there was no increase, right? I mean, we declined for a few years, we kind of flattened out for a few years, and then, like 14, 15, 16, we started to see little incremental increases, right? And then by the time we got into like 17, 18, 19, we were averaging our 6 to 8%. So we actually had some catching up to do from all those other years, which is kind of where we're at now.
Right.
So we should start seeing that slow, steady growth again. And Charlotte just happens to be a great place to live.
Oh yeah.
Right? So we don't have some of the mass exodus that some of the, northern, East Coast, West Coast cities are seeing. Right, I mean, if you can work virtually anywhere, why wouldn't you want to live in a place like the Carolinas?
Well, you got great climate.
Yeah.
We're about 2.5 to 3 hours from surfing or skiing.
Yeah.
You can be at the beach or the mountains. We have
all 4 seasons.
All 4 seasons. Yeah, you've got a lower cost of living than you have in many parts around the country. As well, especially we have so many people who are relocating from the Northeast, from California, even internationally.
It was a hidden gem for a while. Now I think people are onto us.
Yeah, I think people know about Charlotte now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think too. So as we're talking about all this stuff and the trends, let's talk about planning for what's coming next.
Yeah. So 2 things. I remember what I was going to talk about. One is the seasonality of the real estate market. So we're in December right now, and typically around November and December, when we get around the holidays, the real estate market typically slows a little bit. We have the tire kickers aren't out there in the market, is what I always say. If you have a listing, you're probably going to have fewer showings, but anybody who comes to see it is a serious buyer, because they're not wasting their time, this time of year if they're not serious. And as far as home values, they peak late summer or early fall, and then kind of level off, and then in the fourth quarter, beginning of the first quarter, they maybe dip down a little bit, and then usually where we see our huge gains is in the spring,
Right.
Because then we get all the people back in the market, and people start competing again.
Yeah. Well, and I like to tell my sellers too, when you're rounding out that fourth quarter, going into first quarter, you can take advantage of the buy side of that as well, right?
Yeah.
So when you're smart and strategic on selling your own home, making sure that it is staged properly, making sure it is priced properly so you don't have to wait on the market, right? You can then go ahead and take advantage of the buy side of that as well, because we are going to have agents out there that aren't pricing them properly, aren't advising them on the staging and making sure that it's really show ready for top dollar. So they can actually have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
In this
It's all relative.
fourth and first quarter. Yeah, it really does make for a good seller's market for them right now.
Yeah, even if they sell for a little bit less, they're probably going to buy for a little bit
Yeah,
less as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's talk about preparing. If you are somebody who's maybe not in the market yet, but you're planning on buying a home and or selling a home in 2023. So what are some of the things that people need to be doing now? Let's say they want to get their house on the market sometime in the first quarter of 2023 for a seller. What's some things that they need to be doing?
I'll tell you, number one, declutter, right? And then once you declutter, you're going to see that there's probably a few maintenance items, right? Whether it's touching up the paint, whether it's cleaning out the gutters, you got to power wash or, wipe things down here and there. But decluttering is the first place to start, because we need to be able to see what the house is.
Right.
And what it has to offer. Then you can actually go back, because even if you were to declutter a lot, we have the ability to bring staging in, right? So it's okay to get rid of as much as possible, because we have the ability to bring things in. It's always harder to continue to have to pull things out at last minute. And then taking advantage of the maintenance now that we can see the home, so that it's there and it's in its most sparkling condition, right? Clean and fresh and ready to go, right? And then I would say the last thing for you to consider is just making sure that, I think their first bet is to get an agent, really, that knows what they're doing, that knows the area, that knows their listings, right? But I would say the third one really is going to be the pricing, is just making sure that when you're talking to your agent, you've got to have a good agent on your side, guys. Like, it's so important. I can't even tell you, for the 20 plus years I've been in real estate, how important it is to have someone who understands the market, I mean truly understand the market, not just pulling out numbers from MLS that they said, well, here's what all the other homes selling for. They need to understand, where are we in this wave of the trend? Yeah, right?
Trends are huge.
How are our interest rates looking? What are the buyers looking for? Where are we with seller concessions? Right? Your side of the neighborhood versus the other side of the neighborhood with different builders. Get somebody who understands all of those details, right? But your third step is to really get back with your realtor now. Okay, I met with my realtor first, I got my house ready. Now let's do one final check and say, really, am I priced right and am I ready to go, before you actually decide to make that listing active.
Well, yeah, and you need to have measurements are huge. You need to have your house measured before you list your house, especially if you maybe purchased a new construction home.
Yeah.
And those numbers, I can't tell you how many times my listings have grown, and from whatever it said initially when they bought to what the actual measurements are. And I always hire a professional measurer to do that.
Yeah.
So if your house ends up measuring for 100 square feet more, you might be leaving some money on the table.
That's right.
If you went with the old measure, which you can't go with the old measurements anyway, but
you'd be surprised how many agents do.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
they get it measured
Lazy,
too
yeah.
late.
Yeah.
You see those remarks, will be measured next week.
Right, and it's already in there, and I guess I could have priced it. And then nobody wants to increase the price of a listing, right?
Right.
Because that looks bad. Like, oh, what are you talking about? You're listing it for more? I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you've gone through all the work to get it staged. Now you have to have professional photography.
Yeah.
Right? You got to have you get that first chance, one chance at a first impression.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got to get them in the door. That's huge. Right? So make sure your realtor knows what they're doing, because if they don't know how to get you ready and market you properly,
yeah. I was having a conversation with one of my upcoming listings yesterday, called to check in and see how things are going and if they had any questions for me. And one of the things that we were talking about was that they're in the process right now of decluttering. So they've got, they've just accumulated a lot of stuff over the years, and so there's stuff that they want to donate and get rid of. So they're decluttering right now, and then we're going to have our consultation. Our second consultation will be after the new year, and at that point we're going to bring in a staging consultant who's going to go through every room and tell them exactly what needs to be done to make this house look the best that it can possibly look, because that's what gets people in the door. So I think video is important too, but really the pictures are what is going to catch somebody's interest first, because whether you're looking on MLS, if you have a search portal set up with your agent, if you're looking through one of the real estate company's websites, or even if you're looking on Zillow or Realtor.com, those pictures come up first, and most people are just like click, 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 click. You can look through all those pictures really quickly. So you need you need the pictures that are going to stand out. So they're going click, click. Wait a minute, let me go see that one again.
Yeah.
As opposed to
you want them to be interested enough to get to the video tour.
Exactly. Yeah. Like after that, then you're going to watch the video, because you're probably not going to sit down and watch a 10-minute video first, and then if the best part of the house is towards the end of the video, they might be completely missing out on it.
Exactly.
So yeah, you have to definitely need to get people interested in the house through great photography, a good description of the home as well, and then the video. So well, Sarah, this has been great. See if there's anything else that we left out that we wanted to talk about. I think the main things were talking about the market, how the market's going right now, reading beyond the headlines.
Yeah.
So that's very important. Folks, if you see a headline about what's going on in the real estate market, or you see like a 90-second news story talking about it, go deeper than that. Read the actual article, see what the sources are, and then if you want to discuss it, give me a call. I'd be happy to talk to you about what's going on in the market. And remember that real estate is always hyper-local.
Yeah, you have to put it into perspective.
Yeah, and even our market here in Charlotte is a lot different than a lot of the U.S., where they are probably going to see a decent correction in home values. For us, we're looking at more slower appreciation, so probably like leveling out, and then gaining. I saw something the other day too that was projecting about a 5% year-over-year home appreciation here in the Carolinas.
Yeah, which is just slower than our normal 6 to 8%. So
Exactly,
we're still
yeah.
on par, aren't we?
Yeah, we're still doing pretty good.
Yeah, we're still doing good.
Yeah. Well, folks, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for sticking with us. We've been doing these videos throughout the year. This is our last one of 2022.
Wow.
Looking forward to doing more in 2023.
Yeah.
So everyone have great holidays, and if you have any questions about real estate, you can definitely reach out to us, and we're here for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great holiday season and an awesome into 2023. Here we go.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you on the next video. Take care.
See ya.